All right, great bounce back last night for the Blue Jays as they take down St. Aloysius last night. It was a good, redeeming feeling to go to their campus last night, give them a little payback as the Blue Jays were able to topple the St. Aloysius Lions on their campus. We'll get to that, but bigger game this weekend is going to be Cincinnati traveling down to Arrowhead. Burrow versus Mahomes is the storyline. Burrow in the AFC Championship game in year 2. We talked to Jimmy yesterday, his old man. And we also talked to Jimmy Chase on Sunday night. So we've gotten some frontline points of views of Jamar and Joe. Now we get a Cincinnati perspective from our guy, Ben Baby, who is very popular down here in South Louisiana. Every time we have him on, the numbers go berserk, as it has almost become a Cincinnati Bengals core fan base. Coach Burrow and I were talking about that yesterday, Ben. I know that you and I have talked about it. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, how y'all doing this morning?
Doing okay, man. Doing okay. It is crazy to be sitting here talking to you as we discuss the Cincinnati Bengals going in to the AFC Championship. As we talked a couple of weeks back, they were looking for their first playoff win in 31 years. I guess I'll ask you the same question that we led off the interview with the past couple of weeks. What is it like right now? I mean, life has got to be crazy in Cincinnati and as a Bengals fan.
Yeah, I think that, at first, when we first talked at the beginning of this playoff run, there was a hope that maybe we can end this curse and finally get some playoff wins here among the city. And then you definitely sense the difference in the fans now. To be one game away from the Super Bowl was just really incredible for this team. And I think the fan base and the franchise really senses what's at hand here. I mean, this feeling isn't necessarily new for some folks because they have played for a Super Bowl. The most recently, though, was in 1988. The Bengals are 2-0 in conference championship games, so they're looking to go 3-0 with the win over Kansas City. But, yeah, I asked, Logan Wilson, their starting middle linebacker, does it feel surreal that y'all are one win away from being in the Super Bowl? And he goes, it's very surreal. And the thing is, and I asked him, I said, did you really think that y'all could be playing for a Super Bowl back there in training camp? And he didn't really want to say no, but you could get a sense that, it seems like that would be somewhat of a long shot. I think anybody would have told you that. I think the odds makers who are holding some betting slips against them for the Bengals to make a Super Bowl back in July are praying they don't have to cash those because those are going to be that's going to be a hefty payout if they've got to pay.
Yeah, they're making a lot of calls asking for insurance over the weekend to those people that bet that Bengals future for sure.
Hey.
This might be a stupid question because the Bengals beat the Chiefs in Week 17, 34-31 at their place, but is this the best matchup between Buffalo and KC? I mean, do you believe that Cincinnati was probably hoping for KC? Or, I mean, they didn't want to go to that weather in Buffalo, right?
I know sports writers should not want to go in that weather in Buffalo.
Sure.
I will tell you that much. I would imagine that there would be some, they've been very hesitant to say who they would have liked to play. And the thing is, especially with the mentality that they have, under Burrow, from him saying, we don't want to have this underdog mentality. We want to feel like we belong and we believe we're a really, really good team. They feel like they don't need to luck into any matchups. I mean, that's the kind of feeling they've got inside that locker room right now. And I think they were happy to play whoever, and they were happy to go out and try to beat whoever, which, if it was going to be Kansas City or Buffalo. And I do think, though, there's got to be some benefit to playing Kansas City just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
You've got a good sense of what they can do. Your players have a good sense of what they can do. Honestly, Jamar Chase is going to have a great sense of what that secondary is going to do. And one thing that is gone, maybe understated is Jamar is an incredibly smart guy. And for him to get, play a team a second time, get a feel of what the defenders like to do, how they like to play them on the inside and the outside, leverage-wise, get a feel for where they like to sit in their zones, all these things. I think all the nuances of playing that position at wide receiver, he's going to get a second crack at them, going to get more familiarity with them. I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Now, granted, he had 266 yards, a franchise record, the first time they played him. I don't really know how much more he can get. We're going to be talking some insane records if that's the case. But, I think that they feel good about it. And, when you look at how Buffalo was able to pass against Kansas City, the way the Bengals were able to pass against Kansas City, we could be in for another high-scoring affair.
Evan McPherson, talk about his rookie season and what he accomplished on Sunday. Did you expect him to nail that 52-yarder when he lined it up after the season that he's had here in year one?
Yeah, he definitely did. I thought that, the Bengals have had every confidence in him to go out and hit some of these game winners when you look at how they've schemed up the end of game situations, when they put him on the field, where they put him on the field. They feel like he's a guy who can go out and hit timely kicks and crucial kicks in high pressure situations. I was so crushed on deadline, I didn't even watch it go through. I just listened for the crowd. And I was like, all right, because I was like, I need to get something in now, and I don't got time to be looking and going back. So I just went ahead and put something down. And Evan, you could tell before it went through the uprights, he said, we're going to start celebrating now. And now that did cost him against Green Bay when the ball did clang off the upright and veer. But, he's been a guy that, there was a lot of questions over whether they should have taken a kicker in the 5th round of the draft when you look at some of the guys who could come out, some of the prospects who maybe have really good upside, who might be a little raw at that portion of the draft. They instead decided to go get a kicker in Evan McPherson out of Florida. They really liked what he could do, and that is proving to be a pretty big acquisition because, frankly, they're not playing for an AFC title game if they don't have Evan McPherson right now.
Ben Baby joining us here, ESPN.com, covers the Cincinnati Bengals. Ben, 9 sacks against Burrow last week, obviously, and I don't want to focus on any negative because I know the story is high positive around Cincinnati going to the AFC Championship game. But how do they fix the offensive line woes in the offseason around Burrow? Obviously, he's the franchise and the guy that they are basing their future around. How do they protect him?
Yeah, I wonder if it's not time for the Bengals to be realistic about what their deficiencies are on the offensive line. It's something that they've kind of made excuses for it and said, we feel like we've got a really good team here, a good unit here, and they haven't really made any big acquisitions the last couple of years. But overall, this has been a unit that struggled. We had them at 30th in our pass block win rate. Our ESPN metric that's powered by NFL Next Gen throughout the regular season. It's about where they were the year before when Burrow had that knee injury. And I think that there are some issues that need to be addressed, in terms of guys getting beat one-on-one and maybe that blocking need to be better. I think there's also a sense of Burrow's timing has to be better if we're going to be quite honest. I think that that's something that probably needs to improve. And it's something that I think will get better as he continues to be in the league, getting a sense of what hits he can get away from, who he can probably, what sacks he can avoid if he lets a free rusher come through and go from there. I think that there are some things that he can get better at. And there's also things the coaching staff can get better at as well, and maybe scheming things up a little bit easier for him to go out and to get the ball out quicker or make a read quicker or things of that nature. So, Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, was very clear that blame is to be shared for all of those 9 sacks, and I think that's a very accurate way to look at things. And I think you've also got to give Tennessee a ton of credit because they did a good job of keeping Joe on his toes, and that may have led for him holding the ball a little bit longer in some of those sacks.
This defense has stepped up when they've had to all season long. Obviously, the challenge this weekend against Patrick Mahomes and this explosive Kansas City offense. Talk about the defense and how they have performed this season and obviously the challenge that awaits them on Sunday in Arrowhead.
Yeah, this defense has come up with really big plays when they've needed them. I think that's been the point of the defense throughout the playoffs is that whenever they've needed a turnover, whenever they've needed a big stop or a big play, they found a way to get it. It doesn't matter how many yards they've given up, how they've looked up until that point, even on any given drive. They're out there looking to make plays. I mean, there was a drive in that Tennessee game where the Titans were just running down their throat. Derrick Henry was picking up chunk yards. Deontay Foreman rips off a long run to put them near the goal line, and Mike Hilton, their slot quarterback, comes out there and gets a batted ball INT off of Ryan Tannehill and probably brings it back if he's not a little bit gassed. He got made fun of a little bit for being caught by a quarterback, but Ryan Tannehill's maybe a little more athletic than we give him credit for. But I think that says volumes about this defense. The fact that they're able to go in and they always feel like they're able to make a game-changing play no matter what the momentum of the game is at that given point in time. And honestly, you can go back to week 1 against Minnesota when they had a forced fumble when it looked like Dalvin Cook was going to put them into field goal range and give the Vikings a win in the season opener. And then, against Denver when the Bengals were staring down the barrel of a 3-game losing streak and potentially being out of the playoff hunt, Khalid Kareem comes up and does he takes the ball out of Drew Lock's hands right, near the 10-yard line. And rumbles the other way, and that sets them up for that win at Denver to keep their playoff hopes alive. So, throughout the year, this defense has done a really good job of getting those turnovers, and that's going to be key. And Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo said that they can't drop the turnovers that they had in that first game against Mahomes because this guy is good enough that he will make you pay.
Incredible pronunciation, rolling that name off your tongue right there at the end of that
like I got called on in class.
I mean, everybody perked up in the studio like you called on for an answer.
What a test question.
It was incredible. Ben, you like New Orleans, right? The city?
Well, it's good. We enjoy it. We have a good time. My wife is. The Bengals are planning to come down there in 2022. I think this is the correct year. I can never. I think so. Yeah, that they'll be out there. The Saints will be on the road schedule for them. So I'm excied. Maybe hang out in the French Quarter a little bit, do some sightseeing.
So you don't
what's
think it
up with
smells
Eli
like trash?
Apple, bro? What's I mean? Why the hate?
You know what's funny? I don't understand the Eli Apple situation, to be quite honest. Eli's a very outgoing guy. He will say, obviously, as people have found out on Twitter, when he's feeling good, he will say just about whatever he wants, and he doesn't really care what happens afterwards. You're talking about a guy who's got a lot of self-confidence, who previously played for the Saints. And what I found interesting, and what really I don't get, I'd love to ask him why he's going off on Saints fans, is because I think that time with New Orleans was actually so big for him in his career.
I agree.
Because whenever and he told me so as such, and his mom Annie said it as well. When we did a story about him just a few weeks ago, because that time in New York, it did not work out. He had his own teammate calling him a cancer. He told me he didn't handle things well as maybe he should have. There's a lot of pressure when you're a top pick and you're coming and performing, especially in a media market like New York. And for him to be a part of a New Orleans team that was, a no call, pass interference away from being in the Super Bowl, and for him to be a part of a winning team and a winning culture in that kind of locker room, I think that was big for him moving forward. Now, granted, the Saints did kind of let him go, and then they let him go to Carolina, where he battled some injuries. And so maybe that's where some of this hate comes from. But it's been funny to see the reaction on Twitter. Even Jamar Chase had to pop in and say, hey, all y'all bashing Eli. I follow all y'all too. So, but it's all in good fun, so to speak. I don't think that Eli actually hates Saints fans. At least I wouldn't think so. I don't think he was there long enough to be quite honest. But
put himself in the corner.
I think he's a little jaded.
Don't put baby in the corner.
Yeah, no, I think he's kind of he misses. It was very big for him. That time in New Orleans was very instrumental in kind of reinvigorating his career. Ben, we know the story here in Baton Rouge. The further you get away from it, it's crazy to see how many millionaires that Joe Burrow has made and how many people he has made rich along the way. Sorry for the people that are beeping in. Mm-hmm. What was life like post Burrow, now that the Bengals
just hit decline on it,
are staring at a AFC championship game in the face?
Yeah, it's just really remarkable. When you draft a guy with the number 1 overall pick, you hope that he can get you to great places and take your franchise to places that you wanted it to go for a really long time. But for that to happen in year 2, just pretty remarkable. I think that there's a belief that he gives this locker room, this franchise, the fan base, that when he's on the field, anything can happen, and they've got a truly special playmaker. And it's a big reason why Kansas City is playing in the conference championship game yet again and has been a Super Bowl contender and winner. So I think that's in this day and age, you've seen it at the college level and at the NFL level as well. You've got to have a guy, a dude as a quarterback, not just a guy. You've got to have a dude out there who can really go out and really be a leader of your team and also be a dynamic playmaker. And they've got that in Burrow. We saw how that transformed LSU and what that did for, like you said, it made a whole lot of people a lot of money, got a whole lot of people a lot of buyout money as well. And for Zach Taylor, he was a guy who was sitting on the hot seat, going into this, probably even at the end of his 3rd season. And for them to make the playoffs and do what they've done, that's definitely been good for Zach. You've got the coordinators getting looks at head coaching jobs as well. The Duke Tobin's been banded around as one of the maybe one of the top execs of the year, when the Bengals hadn't really drafted all that well the last few years, up until that 2020 draft and what they've done in free agency. So I think any good coach will tell you that if you've got a good player, they can cover a lot of cracks, and Burrow is definitely that kind of guy who can elevate everyone around him, and that's really the mark of true greatness. And I think we're starting to see that with number 9.
Whenever you go back to this matchup, obviously the Bengals have played the Chiefs and Joe Burrow threw 4 touchdowns, were able to beat them. But when you look at it, does it feel like a different Chiefs team this time around just because of what they were able? 13 seconds they were able to score and get into the overtime. And it looks like this is the Chiefs team that everybody expected going into the year, and they've kind of reached their final form. Does this feel like a different game than it did the first time around?
Honestly, not necessarily. The Chiefs had won 8 in a row. Kansas City had won 8 in a row going into that Bengals game. And, they looked like world beaters in that first half. I didn't think that Mahomes was going to be stopped that entire first half in that game. And the Bengals came out in the second half, and they did a really good job of slowing Mahomes down. And, they were able to give him some different looks, threw a zero blitz at him at the end of the game. The Bengals had to come back in that game. They were down, and that was Kansas City looked like they were going to cruise. And Cincinnati had to really rally, and Burrow had to come, out with a really remarkable performance against them. And Chase did what he did. If you'll notice in that first game, the Bengals made it a point not to give Mahomes the ball back at the end. Zach Taylor, whenever he had a chance to kick a field goal, he said, no, we want a touchdown here. And it worked out that after a couple of pass interference penalties and all that nonsense at the end of the game, and that probably went the Bengals' way, they were able to win the game on the final play of the game. Buffalo probably is wishing they did not leave 13 seconds out there. But Mahomes is that kind of guy. That's going to be, I've seen him since he was at White House in high school, seen that when he was at Texas Tech and now at Kansas City. I mean, he's that guy. He's going to be someone who's dangerous anytime he's on the field. And if you're Cincinnati, you've got to try to maybe keep up with him. I think that's your only hope, is maybe trying to slow him down, but really your offense has to be really, really good, like Buffalo's was, to even have a shot. And we'll see. I think the big matchup's going to be, are they going to let Jamar Chase get 266 yards again? Are they going to give the Bengals a ton of one-on-one matchups, or are they going to try to play more zone and maybe be a little bit more out of character for them in hopes of stopping them down? I think the Bengals, that's the question. It's not if the Bengals can stop Kansas City. It's if Kansas City can stop Cincinnati, because, the Bengals did a good job in the first game of slowing Mahomes down. And Kansas City, if they had played better defensively, they're winning that game. So that, for me, that's actually the big question mark.
Ben, I started reading your stuff at the Dallas Morning News. Did you cover Patrick Mahomes in high school?
I used to cover, I think you're covering recruiting and you're out and you're doing all that. But I've known who he was back when I covered high schools, back up in the Denton area where I went to school in North Texas. He was actually a great baseball player as well. Michael Kopech, who I believe is in the Chicago White Sox organization right now, is one of their best pitchers. Him and Mahomes went toe-to-toe in a baseball game. I remember reading that story. I think Mahomes, Kopech pitched like a no-hitter, and Mahomes still beat him. It was ridiculous. I actually played a 4-man scramble back when I was in college and ended up playing with Pat Mahomes Sr. So that was a very fun round of golf. But no, Patrick's been one of the most dynamic quarterbacks to ever come out of the state of Texas. I think everybody knew whenever he signed with Cliff Kingsbury, who's got to be the best quarterback evaluator, I think, in football at the moment. So, no, he's been a really special guy. I'm really excited to see this matchup here on Sunday.
Enjoy this weekend. It should be electric. What a cool story that you'll write for Cincinnati Bengal fans, one that they will hold on to probably forever if they're on the winning side or losing side. I imagine that this will be a classic matchup, and everybody will be invested in this one. It'll be cool to watch that game in KC. Thank you for your knowledge and insight as always, and your time.
Hey, thank you for the pressure you just put on me, Jordy. Now I got to get ready for Sunday, so I appreciate that.
Eye paint the eyes. Tape the wrist. Have a good one.
Hooray!
Later, buddy.
Hey, y'all take care.
All right, man. There he is.